America was told that Thomas Matthew Crooks was just a confused loner, right? No ideology, no online activity, no manifesto, no foreign intelligence. Just a kid who snapped, climbed up on a roof, and nearly killed Donald Trump. That was the story. What I'm going to show you tonight is not a theory, not a guess. It's a composite intelligence picture built from leaked documents, digital forensics, independent investigators, congressional testimony, and open source material the FBI never disclosed. Okay. 20-year-old Thomas Crooks had a deep digital footprint, a multi-year political radicalization pattern, communications with foreign-linked extremist persona. He had pings with someone from FBI. They're saying now some kind of sexual and identity subculture the FBI is using, to me, as a decoy narrative, and an alias crossover with a former FBI agent connected to multiple national security cases. And one huge thing, one connection to Crooks, I believe. And a federal response that looks less like clarity and more like a cover operation. Tonight, I'm going to reconstruct what the FBI won't tell you and what they may be trying to bury. Let's begin. Right, the timeline they hid. Okay, number one, documents indicate Crooks' political evolution was not random. It followed a pattern drift. Okay, now Tucker Carlson did an expose on this a few days ago, discussing this. 2019 to early 2020, he was pro-Trump, pro-violence rhetoric. He called Trump a literal definition of patriotism. He talked openly about civil conflict, AR-15 owners marching on Washington in violent overthrow. He wasn't just political, he was combustible. All right, mid-2020, COVID, ideological inversion. A switch happens fast. Trump becomes a racist, stupid, and a cult leader. Crooks begins attacking Republicans and sympathizing with state power. He shifts from praising Trump to advocating terrorist violence. Right? A few things here. One of these is on August 5th. This reported by Billboard News that the only way to fight the government is with terrorism-style attacks and set off bombs, track down politicians, and assassinate them. This was coming from Thomas Crooks' account. Okay. And that wasn't hidden. It wasn't an encrypted message. It was out on the public forum. Okay. And users tagged the FBI. The Bureau never acted. It's weird, though, because folks like you and I will get our accounts deleted and so on for even the mild things. Remember the one elderly gentleman that was with a walker? The FBI drove an MRAP into his house, shot him in the head, and drug him out in the street, let his body sit on the curb for hours because he made a few memes posts. Now, mind you, this was during a time with Thomas Crooks that America, everyone was secluded, quarantined, and you were fed straight propaganda, state-ran media. Okay? And if you wanted to do an MK Ultra programming, this would be prime time for that. Especially, again, with the propaganda that almost caused a civil war in the streets. You saw it as well as I. People thought that we were on the brink of a civil war during that time. People were taking the streets with rifles, left and right, violence in the streets, fire set into businesses and so on. This was a perfect time for MK Ultra programming. Now, let's talk about the identity subculture, the FBI's head fake. This is the distraction narrative, okay? After Tucker's investigation, legacy media suddenly discovered Crooks' deviant art accounts, okay? And I looked at them, and it was weird things, right? And they're saying that he was into he had usernames, okay? I'll get to that in a second. Epic Microwave and the Pick Microwave. He had they, them pronouns, usage. heavy involvement in the furry fetish communities, right? Also something known as muscle mommies. I guess this is something like bodybuilding women. And these hypersexualized animal creatures, and also gender identity exploration. And this was never the primary issue. To me, it's noise. That may or may not be part of the political radicalization. I don't know. But I think it's odd that the FBI leaked it immediately after Tucker's expose. Why? Because it shifts public focus to humiliation, not motive. It turns Crooks into a embarrassing oddball, not a politically steered actor. Okay. Megyn Kelly, I'm going to show her footage here in a second. She's talking about this, a clear implication that he was recruited. The FBI leaked the furry angle to look like a head fake. Let me play the footage for you.
This is very odd that just now Tucker comes out with this information. Miranda Devine, I don't know. I have no idea, Glenn. My suspicion is that Tucker dropped this bomb on Thursday. The FBI was defending itself, over the weekend since Thursday. And then Miranda Devine gets a big scoop on Monday. Do not have anything
to remember Megan Devine. Remember that. Now, she's right. That part of Crooks' online life matters only for one reason. It proves the FBI lied about him having no online presence. They knew, okay? But remember that lady's name, okay? Because that's important. That's going to circle back and make a huge explosion, okay? An angle no one I've seen talk about, okay? Megan Devine. Now let's talk about the Willie Tepes connection. This is one that Tucker Carlson found, okay? This is part of a group here. Let me show you from Upward News. Crooks interacted with Norwegian neo-Nazi Willie Tepes and echoed violent extremist rhetoric, okay? Again, users frequently tag the FBI under his violent posts, raising questions about prior law enforcement awareness. Now, this is part of the dossier the FBI refuses to acknowledge. Not once, not in any public briefing. Crooks interacted repeatedly with the online persona known as Willie Tepes. Okay, Willie Tepes, Norwegian neo-Nazi extremist account tied through metadata to foreign hosted servers, a Nordic resistance movement linked material, and a violent accelerist propaganda group. Okay, but this is a shot of him here. No details about Willie Tepes, and the FBI has not said anything about it. Now, the interesting thing with Willie Tepes, he consistently pushed themes. Okay, he would reply to Thomas Crooks, talking about inevitability of civil conflict, violence as political expression, dehumanization of political enemies, and revolutionary action. This is classic online grooming, not sexual grooming, but ideological grooming. Tepes acted as a steering mechanism for a vulnerable young male with violent fantasies. Okay. Now, one thing I'll say is during the time of 2020, I noticed a lot of that within my own content. People, and I believe we would call them, you guys that were with me then, we'd call them feds. We'd call them feds because they would be provocateurs. They'd trying to provoke some type of conflict, right? Or they would question, well, why don't you do anything? Why don't you stand up and do something? Like trying to provoke you. And then they would say it in a way that would try to demean you like you were some coward for not taking some kind of action. I saw this expanding and blowing up during that time, and I immediately thought feds, okay? And I believe that they were really out and about trying to get people during this time. A good friend of mine, okay, I'm not going to put names out there, but a good friend of mine, someone that I trained with and so on, got approached by this guy who claimed to be Green Beret, retired, and knew the lingo. So, I mean, not to say he wasn't, but he was trying to get a group together locally. So not anybody on social media or anything, but locally to get a group together to take some kind of action. And then he mentioned, and this, I don't know this guy, but hey, man, do you follow Black Scout Survival? And then he immediately calls me because things are odd. And he's like trying to get together, do some things. And I said, dude, cut that dude off right now. I said, I think he's probably fed, provocateur. Okay. The same thing that happened with Governor Whitmer and those gentlemen involved in that. Some of those were my followers, by the way, and they hit me up with information, totally staged by the FBI completely. That's where they're exonerated completely. Not to mention a couple other things that have happened that I know completely from inside sources that were involved in some of these things that gave me that the FBI were completely doing this type of stuff in that era. And who's to say they're not doing it even now? Okay. But it's just their style. Now, the FBI answers none of the following questions. Okay. They did not identify the real individual behind Tepes. Did they map his server logs? Did they track IP pivots like they do for less political crimes per se, like memes? All right. Did they connect him to other cases involving extremist incitement? Right. They know this persona exists. They had to know that Crooks interacted with it, and yet publicly silence. That is not an incompetence. That is called a mission. Okay. Now, the digital footprint cover-up. If we get into hard contradictions, the FBI originally briefed Congress, limited online activity, no significant social media presence, no meaningful communications with others. However, the gentleman had 2 cell phones. Thomas Crooks had 2 cell phones the day they were covering, and maybe more. But we do know of 2 that he had. You can see in the photographs there. He was seen talking to someone on a cell phone. He supposedly had no friends, didn't know anybody. So who was he talking to? But, independent investigators, unaffiliated with politics, identified that he had 17 plus accounts tied directly to Crooks' email and phone. Among them were YouTube, where he had 737 public comments, Discord, Snapchat, PayPal, Zelle, Google accounts, DeviantArt. Okay. They said he didn't have social media presence, right? All deleted or scrubbed after the assassination attempt. This is what you would call retroactive concealment. And here's where the whole story goes from government incompetence to government awareness, is because investigators later found that multiple cell phones pinged in close interaction with Thomas Crooks at every single location he frequented. His rifle range, his workplace cafeteria, the cafeteria he worked in for the old folks home, the FBI field office he briefly walked through, and, again, the assisted living facility where he was volunteering. Think about that. You don't get repeat device interactions across multiple locations by accident. You don't get phones pinging inside secure government facilities, then pinging next to the same kid at a public shooting range, unless someone is either surveilling him, meeting him, or running him as an asset. Yet the FBI story is no social media, no political motive, no known associates, totally random, acted alone. Really? Then how do we explain the digital footprints of multiple unknown devices shadowing Thomas Crooks from building to building across weeks? If this kid was truly off the radar, why were they using these ghost phones constantly overlapping his movements in places the public can't even enter? And if the Bureau knew enough to track those pings after the assassination attempt, you're telling me they didn't notice them before? You got to give me a break. The other odd thing is that he was using VPNs and so on. Like someone had trained him to cover his digital presence. Okay. Now he may have learned online from maybe Willie Tepes, but after his chats with Willie Tepes, his social media presence vanishes. Okay, it's gone. He was highly active until Willie Tepes, until the communication began, and then it drops off, right? But going back to the ping, someone was either watching him, meeting with him, and someone that knew exactly where he was training, working, and moving long before July 13th. Now, this is where things get really odd here, okay? Rod Swanson. this name here. Rod Swanson. This is the territory that's never been explained. Crooks used a PayPal alias, Rod Swanson, not Ron Swanson from the TV show, Rod Swanson. That name matches Roland Rod Swanson, former senior FBI agent, chief of investigations, Nevada, firearms and instructor. Guess where? We'll go through. Guess where he was a firearms instructor? Pennsylvania. Okay. And that's crazy, but it gets crazier. He was a legal attaché to Yemen, Djibouti, Ethiopia, counterterrorism division in Baghdad, right? Investigator at, guess what? The Las Vegas mass shooting that we never heard anything, that just vanished, disappeared, like it never happened. I'm always talking about it. He also served under, guess who? Robert Mueller's protective detail. Six-figure high-level career across multiple high-threat theaters. Now, Rod Swanson told the New York Post, he says, I don't use PayPal. I don't know why my name is connected to the kid. Most importantly, there's no way the FBI wouldn't have been aware of his online threats. Why was Crooks using the identity, partial or full, of a former FBI agent tied to major domestic terrorist investigations? How would he even know who he is? Coincidence doesn't stretch that far. Now, if we look here, Roland Rod Swanson, a former FBI agent's biggest lesson learned from the Vegas mass shooting incident. Oh, guess whose name is there? Miranda Devine. Rod, please contact me. I've just followed you. Miranda, feel free to call. Miranda's the one that leaked the furry story. Now all the pieces are getting put into place, right? Megyn Kelly just said, and she had a connection to Rod Swanson a long time ago. So this is either identity borrowing, identity spoofing, or something the Bureau refuses to clarify. Either way, it's a red flag the size of a damn runway. Okay. Now, Kash Patel publicly attacked Tucker Carlson for exposing Crooks online, right? Radicalization and foreign link communications. As soon as Tucker releases expose, Director Kash Patel jumps on Crooks' case over 480 FBI employees were involved in the Thomas Crooks, 1,000 interviews, addressed over 2,000 public tips, analyzed data extracted from 13 seized digital devices, reviewed nearly 500,000 digital files. But they said nothing was on here. Now he's saying social media. So this totally conflicts what he said. Now, the thing is, Kash Patel has been very defensive of the FBI as of late. Now, previous to Kash becoming the deputy, he criticized the FBI. But now he's essentially jumping into the swamp. If you didn't know, a few weeks back, whenever they were questioning J6, he said the J6 FBI agents there were not provocateurs. They were sent there after the rioting began. So he's running cover. Then why were they in plain clothes? It would make more sense they come as uniform officers to get control of the crowd. When we know we saw video after video of FBI integrated with the public there. Okay, so, but then we have this dropped. Okay, Patel arranged for a full FBI SWAT team paid for by taxpayers to provide personal protection for a country music singer he's dating, not a spouse, not DHS protected, not a political figure, not residing with him, not under threat, not legally eligible for FBI protective details. So why am I bringing this up? Well, this destroys credibility in two ways. You have the deputy director, misuse of federal assets, compromised judgment surrounding Kash Patel, and as he just went on defensive to Tucker Carlson. This is the man telling America there's nothing to see here. while simultaneously assigning elite tactical units to his girlfriend. It's not professionalism. That's what you call compromised authority. Okay. Now, months before Tucker released the Crooks bedroom training footage, I showed it. If you're a follower here and you saw the video, you know I already discussed this. You saw it here first. Okay. I showed this video months ago of Thomas Crooks, the targets on his wall and him dry firing in his bedroom. Okay. It was pretty much no one cared that I dropped this when I talked about it that night, maybe a few people, but everybody kind of looked past it. But Tucker drops it this weekend, but I showed it like 3 months ago. The dry fire video was found on Crooks' Google Drive. It wasn't just a kid messing around with a gun. Okay. He was doing it like he was training, right? Not some YouTube tactical guru movements, right? But you know, he's training with discipline, it looks like, running the trigger with intentional reset, maintaining a stable stance, and executing what I would say is a clean presentation. Okay. Managing, you know, doing the simulations. Not that I would say he's Delta Force level, but he's someone that's looks to be that he's been training. It's not his first time. Now, the oddity I brought up in the past was when I first showed the video was that he didn't use a pistol in Butler. Okay. He used AR-15 rifle. So why was he dry firing only with the pistols in the private footage? Because maybe this wasn't practice for a specific plan. It was part of his conditioning program. Conditioning is an entirely different category. Conditioning is what you do when you're downloading motor programs into someone, increasing weapons confidence, building familiarity with various firearms, reducing hesitation, normalizing the act of pointing a gun at human targets, maybe. Preparation without intention, the exact psychological programming profile consistent with MK Ultra recruitment patterns. Okay. And I'm not the only one saying that. Representative Tam Burchett publicly said on Benny Johnson that Thomas Crook fits the MK Ultra profile. Okay. The asset profile. This is the type of person that these programs target. This is not a fringe commentator. This is a sitting congressman on record saying that the attacker of the U.S. president displayed the hallmarks of governmental manipulation, behavioral programming.
Yep. They got sued. They said it didn't exist. And then they got sued. And it's too deep. It is MK Ultra.
I'm going to toss to you. That's right. Yep.
They got sued. They said it didn't exist. And then they got sued. And they said, oh, it exists, but we don't use it anymore. So I don't believe them as far as I can throw the dome off the dadgum Capitol, Benny. You got a kid who's got access to guns or has some simple knowledge of a firearm. He was programmed. You're exactly right. They programmed this kid, and Kristi Noem and Cash and Bongino and the rest are reporting the facts as they know them. The facts have been buried or burned, or whoever knew is either sitting on a beach somewhere and enjoying a fruity drink, or they're dead. I would suggest they're probably dead. And this is what happens. You claim it doesn't. They label me and you conspiracy theorists, but this is exactly what we see happen. And it happens in Washington. It's happening now. MK Ultra is too deep. It is.
Yep. Happening now. Crooks' profile matches every historical MK Ultra cutout. Social isolation, dual personality online, sexual identity confusion, sudden ideological flips, violence fascination, foreign link grooming, a mysterious increase in weapons usage, and a ghost device proximity from unknown actors. MK Ultra has never shut down. It was rebranded and buried, outsourced. Okay. Maybe it's not ran inside of Langley, but it's being outsourced to the private sector. MK Ultra wasn't designed to create super soldiers. Okay. It was designed to create pliable individuals, unstable enough to be manipulated, stable enough to execute an action, and broken enough to absorb blame. Oh, yeah, the kid's a whack job. Of course he's going to do it. Crooks fits the template so cleanly it's uncomfortable. You take a young man with a fractured identity, no real social grounding, online radicalization, sexualized disassociation, emotional instability, and bring him a weapon. You continuously expose him to violent ideological reinforcement, Willie Tepes. You place ghost devices near him at multiple locations, range, workplace, government facilities that's linked to someone probably within the government. And you monitor him until he becomes unstable. You keep feeding the monster. That's not conspiracy. That's what you call tradecraft. And it's older than most Americans realize. Crooks wasn't just a lone wolf. He was primed. This isn't supernatural. It's not mind control lasers. It's not Hollywood hypnosis. It's human behavioral programming and environmental shaping, the same methods MK Ultra pioneered in the 1950s and 60s. The same methods intelligence agencies around the world still use. In the same profile we see in Sirhan, James Holmes, Adam Lanza, Nicholas Cruz, and now Thomas Matthew Crooks. And every one of them is a loner, fractured identity, internet radicalization, firearms familiarity, right? Erratic ideology and shadow digital footprints. Well, maybe not Sirhan with the digital, but this is not randomness. This is a pattern, okay? Now, let's look at the operational environment. The failures that happened that day simultaneously. The drone detection system was offline during the same exact moment that Crooks was scouting, and he flew his drone for 11 minutes unchallenged. The AGR building did not have cameras. It was executed from excluded from the inner perimeter. There was a suspicious person alert about Crooks that was received and then ignored. A counter sniper left the area early. Evidence on the rooftop was washed off immediately. Crooks was then cremated within 10 days, eliminating independent autopsy options. The FBI refuses to release full device logs, search histories, chat logs, training range footage. We really want to see the training range footage. We want to know who he was with, who was training him. When independent investigators want transparency, the FBI gives stonewalling or excuses. When media ask about Willie Tepes, they get deflection. And when Congress submits document requests, they get delays. When the public asks for truth, we get narratives, right? It almost sounds like the same as Tyler Robinson at this point. This is not how innocence behaves. This is how institutions behave when they fear exposure. Now, let's break this down with logic to find the most probable answer. The three most plausible readouts, okay? Number one, they're telling us lone actor, institutional negligence. Yeah, it's possible. Doesn't explain the clearance of the rooftop access. It doesn't explain the foreign grooming, and it doesn't explain the digital linking, okay? Lone shooter groomed by foreign extremist infrastructure. Number two, plausible, matches psychological profile, matches Tepes interactions, matches FBI silence, matches the concealed digital footprints. And now, if you view this through the lens of a CIA-led operation under the cover of a foreign national from a foreign country, very possible. And that brings you to coordinated influence, number three, right? With institutional complicity. Cannot be proven, so plausible deniability. Cannot be dismissed. Too many simultaneous failures, which equals smoke. Too much selective disclosure equals more smoke. And too many anomalies with identity, motive, and evidence handling, ton more smoke. And where there's smoke, there's fire. The question is no longer whether the public was misled. The question is why. That is the question, not if we've been misled, but why have we been misled? The truth doesn't need protection. Lies do. Look, if Thomas Crooks was just a confused kid, the government would release every log, every chat, every camera angle, and every device image. And we'd know who he was shooting with at the range, and that person would be brought in front of the limelight. Instead, they burned evidence. They buried files, right? They smeared anyone who asked questions, and they hid critical foreign link communications. He had VP servers or chats from other countries. This was not a lightning strike. This was a convergence of red flags ignored. Okay. Anyway, I wanted to break this all down to you. I want to know your thoughts, guys. This is not about fear. This is not about narrative. This is not about compromise. This is just the truth, and the truth is never a comfortable thing. Stay frosty, stay strapped, and always stay dangerous. Black Scout.